Imagine that you were one of the strongest heroes of your time, possessing a power never seen before, and had already reached the top 1 rank in your country in record time. But after facing a horde of monsters impossible to defeat, you ended up being eliminated. For some reason, however, you reincarnated centuries later, accumulating an endless number of strengthening points, and now you aim to be the top 1 in the world. Can you imagine it? Well, that's exactly what happened to our MC, Zhang Yu. So stay with me, and I'll tell you how it all happened. Our story begins with several monsters advancing on the protagonist. Disaster approached silently, and he was prepared for it. His face glowed golden, and he exhaled because the powerful fall into despair. Many people gathered around a coffin. But this story was not over yet, because the day he rises again, it will be the day everyone reveres him as a god. He stayed AFK for 1,000,000 years but has now awakened as a god. In the Star Dragon City, Lehigh, countless monsters from another world invaded the real world, bringing great disaster to humanity. Fortunately, luck favors the brave. A seal appeared on the backs of all humans, awakening various abilities through this mysterious mark. Since then, humanity has entered the era of universal job exchange. Among the many awakened, there are only 3 mythological level professionals: the nation's beacon, Phantom Sword Master, named Alpha, Infernal Dragon of Russia, named Restov, and from the Frozen Country, a freezing mage king named Quan Jisien. Because of their absurd power, these 3 have always been at the forefront of conquering the other world. A century ago, the Dragon Kingdom also produced a highly talented professional, the strongest in the entire Dragon Kingdom, known as Azura. Is he the owner of Azura Scans? He was so powerful that it took him only 10 years to achieve China's greatest record, becoming the first to connect with the 70th world, defeating various monsters there, and conquering the planet. However, even as strong as he was, during the invasion of the strongest wave of 9th level beasts, Azura, who was an 8th level transcendent, defended the rift alone against the wave, successfully protecting the Dragon Kingdom, but sacrificing his life in the process. That year marked the centenary of the legendary awakened known as Azura. At the memorial in the city capital, many professional warriors gathered to pay tribute to his brave deeds. Meanwhile, according to that year's statistics, the country had a total of 12.35 million awakened humans, the highest record in 100 years. Among them, base-level professionals represented 10%, a record much higher than what was recorded in Azura's birth year. Perhaps this meant that the birth of the next Azura was expected to happen soon. A lightning bolt strikes amidst the storm in the city. Our protagonist lies in bed, facing the window, as a message says that the gate to the other world is about to open, urging professionals to prepare. Seeing this message, the MC widens his eyes. His appearance seems somewhat cadaverous, but the message makes it clear that he needs to prepare. He gets up quickly and, looking up, wonders if he isn't dead. Where is he? The room he is in seems small. A headache emerges, and he is still trying to understand what is happening when, suddenly, several fragments of memories begin to appear. Him being humiliated for having a useless profession. Someone saying his siblings' medical expenses are overdue. Another saying he is just a weak animal trainer. And him apologizing for being poor and useless, unable to save himself or anyone else. The protagonist realizes these memories aren't his and wonders whose they are. He could never have expected that. 100 years later, he would have reincarnated with the same name and surname he had in his previous life. He was a beast trainer, a profession that required pets for combat, and he also needed to take care of the pets, which was not ideal for ordinary people. With a life full of failures, the young Zhang Yu, disappointed with life, ended up seeking a quick end through medication. Getting up, the protagonist looks at a picture of himself from another time. Grabbing a jacket, he remembers he was the strongest awakened of the Dragon Kingdom, Su Luo. And now that he has taken over this body, it is time for him to awaken again. He will take on all the responsibilities and arguments of that previous soul and conquer this brutal world. And that's why we know he managed to reincarnate, because he wasn't a quitter like the guy who abandoned the body he took over. The warning had been given, he had to prepare. Cracking his knuckles, he said it was time to begin. A sort of black hole appeared before him, and a spatial portal began to expand. The boy placed his hand inside the portal. Then he began to float into it. A century ago, he had awakened as an epic warrior, but in this world, he was a beast tamer, a much harder profession to strengthen. Already inside the portal, the system notified the MC of his rewards. He received 221,066,496,000 energy points. For defeating the level 9 monster wave, he earned a mythical achievement, the unequaled of another world, and was rewarded with the Supreme Oracle. The item was automatically used, granting him a permanent buff, a 10,000-fold increase in his online and offline energy gain in the other world. Additionally, his offline gains were boosted by 999 times, resulting in 22,104,438,950,400 energy points. He was thrilled to see that, even after being offline for 100 years, the rewards from his last defense awaited him and were colossal. Finally, the protagonist received a career reset, allowing him to choose from 7 legendary base professions: Death Knight, Dark Swordsman, Shadow Reaper, Holy Priest, Inferno Mage, Shadow Hunter, or Necromancer. Remembering that the strongest profession at the moment was Beast Tamer, he realized leveling it up was very difficult because it required too much energy. But since he managed to reincarnate, and still had various rewards for the time he was away from the world, he chose the Necromancer profession. The system congratulated him on his choice, and he started with 100 growth stars. His strength was truly at a mythical tier. His stats were now on a completely different level, and he gained several incredible abilities with his new Necromancer profession. Beasts could only have their intelligence increased through special rewards, and their quality couldn't be improved, but for Necromancers, it was different. In his past life, the MC cleared 70 worlds in just 10 years, which made him the top 1 player in China, but in this life, he was already starting at a mythical level. He was determined to retrace the path of his previous life but aimed to become the world's top 1 player, and the strongest of all. The system notified him that he was entering the first world, the source of nightmares, and he was teleported to a safe zone. Combat was prohibited within this zone, and the system asked if he wanted to continue using the name Azura, but he declined and changed it to 0. His goal was to surpass the existence of Azura and transcend everything and everyone, becoming 0. The people teleported with the protagonist began analyzing the world, some excited and others a bit confused by the peaceful surroundings. At that moment, the system announced the first mission, visible in the mission interface. Meanwhile, some started forming teams. The mission for the first world was to break the apocalyptic pattern of the place, thereby crushing the darkness that surrounded it, defeating 1,000 monsters and also collecting 10 silver coins. After completing these 2 tasks, they could be teleported to the world boss. This layout was already familiar to the protagonist, so he decided to buy some equipment and begin the missions. Arriving at a shop, he was greeted by the shopkeeper, who asked how he could assist him. There was no significant change in the shop system, and since it was a basic shop, its best items were only 1 star. The shopkeeper noticed the MC's behavior and said he could arrange better equipment for him, but it would cost a bit more. Throwing a small pouch on the counter, he said there were 100 copper coins inside and asked for a 1-star set. Handing the protagonist only a staff, the shopkeeper thanked him for the purchase and said he could return anytime. Others nearby were confused as to why he had spent all his money on just 1 weapon. It would have been better to buy the whole set. The boy thanked them for the information but walked away from the guys, and a girl began asking if he could refine the equipment to gain more power. The boy replied that refining required energy, a rare resource, so it was foolish to spend it on a 1-star weapon. Far away, the protagonist didn't care about the conversation, even though they were despising him, thinking he didn't know what he was doing. For most rookies, spending all their money on basic equipment was really foolish, but that wasn't the case for him. He knew exactly what he was going to do, using energy to level up the weapon. The refining cost increased as he succeeded in refinement, while the success rate, on the other hand, decreased. But the protagonist kept refining over and over, until he managed to raise the equipment to the highest possible level after 132 attempts, spending only 985 energy in the process. This didn't even consume 0.001% of the total energy he still had available to use, and his preparations were finally complete. The show was truly about to begin. The rookie's nightmares started there, in the middle of a forest in the first world. Someone was fighting a mutant rat using a sword and managed to deflect the monster's attack, but it was still too strong and began growling at the boy, who was frightened by it. Even though it was a basic monster, its HP was very high, and he could barely deal any damage. Worse yet, if the monster managed to land even a single hit on them, it was total game over. They'd end up in a coffin sooner than expected. A magic orb appeared in the spot where the fight was happening, hitting the monster directly. The boy looked back and saw that there was a girl with him too, fighting the monster. They were startled to see the magic. Being informed by the system that the staff had activated a special effect, the protagonist approached the monster lying on the ground after the strike. He defeated the monster alone because he was already of a mythical profession, whereas basic professionals usually needed to form teams to defeat monsters. The team looked at the protagonist, impressed by his power, wondering if he was already a veteran, though they couldn't believe anyone would have so many resources at that point. Even so, they noticed the MC's legs were thin, which made no sense to me. Who even pays attention to someone else's legs outside the gym? The MC realized there was a problem with defeating level 1 monsters. He couldn't gain enough XP to reach the next level. But in that world, there were only weak monsters like mutant rats, venomous spiders, armored scorpions, wild boars, and the boss, a level 10 king boar, while the MC was still at level 1. The best choice for him at that moment was to look for level 3 and above monsters, which were near an abandoned factory. He was already leaving the area when the swordsman called out to him, asking if he would like to form a team, and the women even tried to seduce him. But playing the Sigma role, he looked at all of them with disdain and simply said it wasn't necessary, and the boy apologized for bothering him. Scared, they realized that the protagonist's aura was far more intimidating than the monsters in that area, but they noticed he was heading toward the abandoned factory. The monsters there were much stronger, and they wondered if he planned to defeat them alone. At the factory, a rat tried to attack the MC, but with just one move, he defeated several monsters, gaining XP in the process, and reaching level 2, earning various rewards. The next level now required 250 points. He began defeating the venomous spiders with little difficulty. His expression didn't even change, resembling Saitama, defeating everything with a single blow. Upon reaching level 3, the boy left a massive trail of destruction behind him, unlocking the first skill compartment. He had earned 18 skill points and already had a fireball spell he could use. Mages and beast tamers had similar growth paths, but it was crucial for him to ensure he could cast spells quickly and stably, only then investing in agility points. Most basic professionals didn't invest energy points into initial skills, as it could be wasteful in the long run. But as we already know, he had energy to spare and even earned more than he could spend, so he began maxing out the fireball skill. He managed to increase the fireball's damage by 140% of its original power, but he could still do more once he leveled up further. Looking at the system, he realized that if he could reach level 8 after completing the world's 2 tasks, it would be possible to face the boss there. Interrupting his thoughts, someone started asking if anyone was there, and when the MC looked to the side, there was a giant door. He opened the door and entered the place where he had heard the voice, and sees a completely injured person sitting on the ground, missing one of their legs. He begins to think that, even if death is permanent in this world, it isn't much different from a regular game, and there are NPCs like this one with quests. The NPC says his family was wiped out by monsters and asks him to help avenge them. The system asks if the MC would like to accept the mission. The equipment from missions is better than the ones from the shop, and since he only has a staff for now, it would be interesting to take on some quests. On the interface, the system informs him of his objective, to defeat all 30 scorpions inside the factory, with several rewards, including a piece of equipment. Looking ahead, he begins to enter the factory, which is dark. He realizes that there aren't just monsters inside, but his priority at that moment is only to complete the mission. It had been a long time since he'd seen those iron-armored scorpions, and this excites him. They were level 5 monsters with strong defensive abilities, and there were many of them gathered there. The monsters rush toward the protagonist to attack him, but he doesn't back away and begins to cast his magic. Pulling his staff from behind, a fireball strikes the tail of one of them, which uses a charge ability, forcing the protagonist to leap to dodge the blow. Descending with full force onto the scorpion, he manages to defeat the monster, causing a massive explosion and gaining a lot of XP and energy. Even though he had a lot of energy, his level was low, and he couldn't use his magic frequently because it consumed a lot of mana. He remembers that if the number of scorpions drops below a certain level, the Emperor Scorpion will appear. The boss of that area was approaching and begins to advance on the protagonist. He had to defeat it as quickly as possible, or his mana could run out completely. Casting the super fireball, it hits the monster, but the damage wasn't very effective. Apparently, the Emperor Scorpion's skin was much tougher and thicker than the smaller ones. It uses its pincers to try to strike the boy, but he leaps close to the monster and casts another spell, hitting a weak spot, causing it to scream in agony and pain. This time, the attack was much more effective. The MC temporarily immobilizes the monster, even though it cost him all his available mana. Regardless, this was the last scorpion, and once he defeated it, the mission would end, so he starts approaching the monster. But suddenly someone jumps from behind him with a sword in hand, ready to sever the protagonist's head from his body. The warrior yells that they will complete the mission and take the Emperor Scorpion's spoils, but the MC doesn't move immediately. With a simple motion, the boy dodges the other man's sword slash. Smiling, he says they finally decided to show up. Startled, the other man asks if he had noticed them a long time ago. And yes, he had already noticed them and knew they were people who used criminal tactics to level up, taking advantage of honest individuals. Unfortunately for them, they had chosen the wrong person to try and eliminate that night. None of them would leave there alive. The MC would make sure of that. He had faced enemies thousands of times stronger than them before, so he begins casting a massive spell. This terrifies the boy, wondering how such a thing was possible. The explosion hits the man squarely, sending him flying, leaving his companions terrified, but the MC was already behind him. The man asks if he wasn't out of mana, how he was able to use his spells, and the MC realizes he wasn't a novice. Defeating the scorpion with his magic, the system informs him that he unlocked a necromancer profession effect and asks if he wants to make the monster his pet. The MC sees he was lucky to have the effect activated so quickly and commands to absorb his new pet. A black flame begins to appear at the boy's feet, and his enemy, desperate, sees the flames right in front of him. Now he had his first pet, the Emperor Scorpion, of common quality. The MC's aura, already frightening, became even worse. Not only was it terrifying, but the monster also had very strong stats and exclusive abilities. With infinite loyalty, the MC receives information that he could upgrade his pet's level to elite by consuming his energy, which was great for him. He uses all the necessary points to rank up his Emperor Scorpion, taking it from level D to level A with a single click. Completely terrified, the other boy asks who he is. A common beast tamer could never have such power. The MC replies that he had felt someone watching him ever since he received the mission, and that they were planning to ambush him to defeat the monster at the right moment. Crying in despair, he realizes they chose the wrong target to mess with, and he needs to escape as quickly as possible. But the protagonist smiles and tells his pet to show its strength. In the next instant, the monster's pincer strikes the other boy's stomach, leaving him on his knees on the ground. He begins begging for his life, but the MC shows no mercy, saying that if he wants to become the predator, he must be prepared to become prey at some point. Returning to the NPC, he thanks the protagonist for the revenge and says that from now on, he would consider him his brother. The rewards were excellent, and he even gained 2 new pieces of equipment and managed to level up once more. The first piece of equipment he obtained was a magic necklace that gave him more mana, and the second was iron boots that provided both physical and magical defense. He immediately maxes out the refinement of the equipment, giving them new attributes, and equips them. Look at how beautiful the necklace looks on the protagonist. With these new items, he could reach level 5 even faster. Something in the system catches the protagonist's attention. It was an area notification. A hidden domain had appeared in that world and would last for 1 hour. It was recommended to challenge it to earn rewards. Several people were already gathered at the location, reading the same notice that had appeared to our protagonist. The domain's level wasn't much higher than his current level, and there were good rewards for the first ones to complete it, so he became excited to clear the area. Someone shouted in the crowd, asking if anyone wanted to form a group since the rewards for the first to finish would be generous, and they could get rich. But a boy stepped forward, saying that at level 5, they wouldn't stand a chance against the monsters in the domain. Approaching, the MC saw there were people interested in challenging the domain, even in groups. Someone told him to get out of the way, because President Qing was passing through. It was a guy wearing golden armor who seemed very strong. The MC wondered who he was. His arrival was quite grand, and someone explained that he was the son of a rich man and had billions in assets. The people gathered there called him Young Master, and all his subordinates had full 1-star gear sets. A girl called the protagonist's name, which was Zhang Yu, and he realized she was the ex-girlfriend of the original owner of the body he now inhabited. Her name was Lin Yuejin. She approached him with the intention of humiliating him for being a mere beast tamer who couldn't even pay rent but wanted to attempt a level 5 domain. Her words were cold, and he asked if she had a problem with that, leaving the woman in shock. How could he not grovel and humiliate himself in front of her? He had never been so cold before. Had he turned red pill? Still intent on humiliating him, she approached the rich boy and said only strong people like the young master were capable of attempting that domain. The boy took the opportunity to join the girl in mocking him, asking how it felt to be kicked while down. He should know his place. The boy replied that she was just an old shoe he didn't wear anymore. So if he wanted, the other guy could feel free to use her too, he didn't mind. This left the girl furious and hurt her ego, and she screamed for Master Yao to teach the protagonist a lesson because he was being too arrogant. But the MC gave a brief warning, saying they should value their own lives. He wasn't there to play games, and his demeanor was intimidating. Screaming that those were just empty threats, the ex-girlfriend said he was weaker than Yao. The boy tried to analyze the protagonist's stats but couldn't see them. He found it strange that the MC was purposely hiding his attributes. He raised his hand and turned his back, saying it was time for him to enter the hidden domain. He didn't have time to waste on someone as pathetic as the protagonist. Yao called his subordinates and asked if they all had resurrection scrolls. It was time to clear the domain. The group got excited and, confirming that they did, began entering the portal. Someone approached the protagonist and said he needed to accept the reality that the weak couldn't compete with those strong and rich guys. But the MC says that if he thinks he is weak, he must find a way to become strong. In his previous life, he was poor and weak, yet he became the top one. They think the boy is just pretending to be strong, and someone mentions how resurrection scrolls are very expensive, but everyone in Yao's group has them. That was expected from someone rich like him, and they believe the first clear reward will go to him. These domains usually had some bosses guarding them, and with the MC's current strength, he wasn't sure if he could handle them all alone. Unless he and his pet reached level 5 and had the right equipment and maxed out skills. Only then could he guarantee victory. Yu stands there looking at the portal while the others start to disperse. Perhaps it's a better idea to let them handle this domain while he gets stronger. Yao's group begins entering the hidden domain, confident they'll be able to clear it without any trouble. The protagonist's ex-girlfriend asks the boy why he didn't avenge her when someone disrespected her. He replies that there were too many people there, and if he eliminated a professional without a good reason, it could harm his reputation. It wasn't worth it. But she didn't need to worry. He would make the MC kneel before them and beg for forgiveness sooner or later, and that made the girl grateful to him. Elsewhere, the protagonist is fighting monsters and thinking that pets of his class need the same experience as he does to level up. Luckily, Necromancer class pets only require half the XP of their master, which made his work much easier, and he continued the monster massacre. Some bystanders watched him fight, amazed at how strong the boy was. One of them even regretted mocking the MC earlier. The women became interested in joining his group and started trying to seduce him, but he simply walked past them, saying he wasn't interested in anything they could offer. The system informs him that the hidden domain will close in 10 minutes, and the protagonist remembers that equipping his pet will increase its defense, so he can use that to turn the Emperor Scorpion into a tank for him. The pet's stats would help him focus on dealing damage to the bosses over time. Along with equipment that rapidly restores mana, he could also use the Fireball spell continuously and efficiently. Entering the portal to the hidden domain, Yu thinks 10 minutes is enough. An explosion happens, and 2 men are severely injured, one of them being Yao. They were 2 level 2 professionals facing a level 7 boss. The monsters in that domain were too powerful, and Yao's subordinate suggests they focus on staying alive and escaping as quickly as possible. In the next moment, the man notices something and, looking back, he sees someone approaching them. Seeing it was the protagonist, Yao asks why he was there. Did he come just to try to clear the domain on his own? Wasn't he afraid of dying? The protagonist doesn't respond. He only gives an arrogant smile, and Yao grows desperate, asking why he's laughing and saying he'll teach him a lesson, but his companions just try to convince him to leave. As they leave, Yao says it's better if the MC gets defeated there so he doesn't even have to finish the domain. The system welcomes the protagonist for entering the Apocalypse City domain. His mission is to defeat the Guardian, a level 7 boss. Yu couldn't care less about Yao and starts heading toward the monster to defeat it. The ground in front of him begins to crack, and a tail with pincers appears right in front of him. The boss was gigantic, with extremely high stats compared to the MC. As expected of the Scorpion leader, its health bar was much larger than that of common monsters, but this excites him, and he commands his pet to attack. The 2 scorpions engage in a fierce battle, and with the MC's pet equipment, not even a level 7 boss could deal damage to it. Casting multiple fireballs, the MC deals massive damage to the boss without much difficulty. Until, at a certain moment, the boss turns to him because the threat level was too high. The scorpion pet positions itself between the 2 to protect its master, and the MC begins casting multiple fireball spells again, which hit the monster point blank. The boss starts bleeding and getting tired, rage beginning to consume its body as it prepares to make its next attack against the boy. It causes a massive tremor on the ground, making the MC jump back and strike directly at the boss with another devastating attack. The boss was finally defeated, without much effort on the protagonist's part. In the end, it was no match for the boy. The system congratulates the MC for being the first to clear the domain, and he receives a new piece of equipment along with a secret domain scroll. People outside are shocked by the announcement. They also saw that player 0 had cleared the domain. They don't know who this player is and didn't see the protagonist entering the portal, but they are impressed by his strength. The ex-girlfriend says that at this point, most of them are still between levels 1 and 3, but the Guardian was level 7, who could have that much power so early on. Yao looks at her and asks if it could have been her ex-boyfriend. They saw him enter the domain, and a few minutes later, the announcement appeared for everyone. She is incredulous, saying it's impossible for someone like him to be that strong, let alone strong enough to defeat a level 7 boss alone. Yao believes her words, thinking it could be someone entirely different. Planting his sword into the ground, he says that whoever managed to defeat the boss isn't just anyone. He then shouts that he wants to know who player 0 is and promises a huge reward to recruit him to his group, and the others agree. Still inside the domain, the MC managed to make the dungeon boss his pet too. Now he had 2 monstrous scorpions as pets. The drop rate for monster lords was much higher than for common monsters, so they often dropped more money and equipment blueprints. But the most important thing of all was the scroll he received. These items had priceless value in the market because they could be upgraded with energy. people would pay thousands of coins for them. The MC uses the one-click upgrade option, raising it to the Mystic King level, making the scroll worth hundreds of thousands of coins. He could sell it, but his goal at that moment was to become the strongest professional in the world and clear all the worlds. Using the scroll, he receives a gold coin and a mission to save a survivor and earn a massive reward. He looks at the mission and finds it strange that the rewards are so high for a mere NPC escort mission. The difficulty level is 100, and he has to find a man named Aileen and escort him to a safe zone, but the rewards are still secret. Looking at the map, he notices that the zone where the NPC is located is level 10, while he is still level 5. Additionally, there are berserker boars that always appear in groups, making it very difficult for the MC to handle them alone. He decides, in the end, to find NPC Aileen first and starts walking through the forest. A child appears crying and running, being chased by a boar, until an explosion occurs where the beast was. The protagonist saves the child and makes free barbecue out of the monster. She asks if he was there to save her, and he confirms it. He had found NPC Aileen, who turns out to be a girl. The mission completion time is 10 hours. Another boar appears, and the MC realizes they started showing up right after he found the little girl. The beast charges at the protagonist and his ward, but with just one move, the monster is defeated by the boy. He used several small fireballs to take down the creature, and then he starts getting surrounded by other boars. He notices that the boars are strong, even with his equipment and skills maxed out. He can't harm them, and if the girl dies, he fails the mission. The boy calls for the Iron Scorpion, and it appears, attacking all the boars at once. Casting the ultimate magic, Super Fireball, he begins striking several boars and manages to eliminate one, earning excellent rewards for defeating a monster far above his level. Realizing the strategy works, he commands the Scorpion to keep holding off the attacks while they level up further. After casting Super Fireball magic multiple times, he manages to defeat several boars, but his mana is almost depleted because they keep coming. The little girl asks if he is okay, and he says she doesn't need to worry because he will definitely be able to protect her. A boar manages to hit the protagonist with a headbutt, this time startling him and causing a bit more damage, but he releases another barrage of fireballs, sending the monster flying. Even though it was burning, the damage was minimal, and the beast continued to rage, ready to attack again. Fortunately, the protagonist had a high health bar, otherwise, that boar's attack would have already completely defeated him. The Iron Scorpion was also getting weak. That mission was far more difficult than it seemed. There were too many monsters for him to defeat alone. Defeating one of the boars, the MC levels up twice at once, which saved him by providing more points to invest in attack power. Isn't it strange to think he has all this energy but can't use it properly because of his level? Additionally, he equips a ring he obtained from defeating the Scorpion in the hidden domain, which also strengthens him significantly. He begins to conjure a gigantic fireball, and it directly hits one of the boars, killing it instantly. Before, it took 7 or 8 fireballs to defeat one of the beasts, but now he can eliminate them with just 2, causing destruction everywhere. The MC starts defeating all the boars surrounding them. He finally gets rid of all the monsters, but he is very tired. Now he just needs to escort the NPC to the city and complete the mission. Someone approaches, impressed to see that he wasn't eliminated inside the hidden domain. The rich kid, along with the ex-girlfriend, stood in front of the MC, but paying little attention, he says he has no time to waste with 2 useless pieces of trash like them and tells them to leave. The ex-girlfriend once again asks Yao to teach the MC a lesson, since he seemed stronger. This time, the rich kid agrees and draws his sword. With an intimidating look, Yu says that if he wants to eliminate him, he can try because he will give the man a chance. Shouting that he wanted to see if the MC's words were tougher than his sword was sharp, Yao charges to attack the boy, who stands still waiting. The sword strikes the protagonist's shoulder, but he doesn't even take his hands out of his pockets, leaving Yao shocked to see this. Here we have a Kirito wannabe taking hits from a bunch of people without losing a drop of his health bar. The ex-girlfriend is also terrified. He was just a poor, unarmed beast tamer. How could Yao not defeat him? With a confident smile, the protagonist asks the man if he has finished his performance, and begins to prepare his attack, saying that now it's his turn. Raising his staff, he begins conjuring a gigantic fireball spell in front of Yao, who, in desperation, says he is the heir of the Supreme Guild and that the MC shouldn't dare attack him. So he can attack, but doesn't want to be attacked? The protagonist lowers his staff, casting the spell at the boy. That hits him point blank, sending him flying backward and defeating him with a single blow. Yao's armor falls empty, and the system informs the MC that he defeated someone who attacked first, so the members of his group could also be eliminated without the MC receiving penalties. Yao was an idiot. In this world, defeating someone who attacked first is considered self-defense by the system, and he can kill anyone that way. But if the attacker manages to defeat the victim first, they gain 100 evil points, and their name turns red. Anyone with this penalty cannot enter safe zones or leave the world unless they kill enough monsters to remove the points, or they must wait for death. When a professional dies, they not only lose levels and XP but also lose various items and equipment. While the MC is collecting the items, the ex-girlfriend watches him in terror, unable to understand how he had gotten so strong. The MC approaches her, and she begins to panic, asking what he wanted with her. Resurrection scrolls could only be used twice a week, and she had already used the first one to escape the hidden domain. If she had to use it again, she wouldn't have another chance. But the boy just walks past her. He wasn't interested in eliminating her. His focus was solely on completing the escort mission. Seeing him leave without giving her a second thought, Linyu becomes furious, already planning to take revenge and consequently mess up at the hands of the protagonist. The sun had already risen in the second zone, and Aileen was bowing in gratitude for being saved. With this mission completed, the protagonist had received various rewards, including an ice staff, a pet egg, and several stat points. He summoned the ice staff, and the system displayed its attributes along with its special effects. He immediately began the refining process for the staff, spending a total of 22,356 energy points to maximize it. The higher the quality of the equipment, the more energy it consumes to reach maximum refinement. But this wasn't a problem for the MC. He also looked at the egg, which was one of the rewards, but it appeared to be just a normal pet egg. He already had several of these from defeating monsters while exploring that world. Finally, he decided to use all the eggs to feed the Iron Scorpion, which was very pleased. The Scorpion evolved from normal to silver quality, gaining several stats and abilities. This outcome was very positive for the MC, a 2-star weapon, a pet evolution, and the equipment he took from Meow. Now it was time to face the boss. But before that, he needed to go back and gather some supplies. Returning to the original world, his phone rang, and when he answered, it was the hospital informing him that if he didn't pay the 390,000 yuan debt, they would stop his brother's treatment. He responded that he would make the payment in 10 minutes and began selling various pieces of equipment. Helping the original body owner's brother was a way to show gratitude. However, when he tried to make the sale, a warning popped up, saying the item couldn't be sold because it was bound to him. This was one downside of having such a broken system. It was designed to be foolproof in some ways. His equipment couldn't be sold, and the silver coins he had could only be exchanged for just over 10,000 yuan. He still needed to find a way to make more money. So, he picked up his phone and checked the market for other players' requests, but it was still too slow to earn what he needed. Something caught his attention. A mission from a new professional hiring a rookie for training at 300,000 yuan per hour. Everyone was shocked by the reward, but it was real. The MC put the phone to his ear and found it interesting that such a reward could be so enticing. A person was sitting in front of several screens, and the MC was calling them to ask about the requirements for completing the 300,000 training mission. The person responded that the first requirement was to be a rookie professional, and the second was to escort someone through the world. Without hesitation, the protagonist accepted but said he wanted 390,000 yuan. The response was that he would receive 400,000 yuan after completing the task. The person speaking to him was a girl, and the MC asked when they would start. She said she'd be waiting for him in Doomsday City in 10 minutes. At the resurrection point in Doomsday City, the protagonist waited. He thought this was a great opportunity because he already planned to clear the first world, and now he'd earn 400,000 yuan just for escorting someone. He saw someone approaching. It was a hooded figure, apparently a woman, asking if he was the hired trainer. The people around them began whispering, wondering if she was the Doom Mage and if the MC was the one who had taken the task. She started to remove her hood, but before she could, he invited her to join his team so they could complete the mission to clear the world. The system notified him that someone with a hidden ID had joined the protagonist's group, and he began explaining the requirements to clear the first world: 1,000 monsters and 10 coins. She said she understood. He explained that the system had a rule preventing her from attacking monsters that were too strong for her, so they would need to use another strategy. They would complete the requirements first, and level up as they fulfilled these tasks. Attacking an iron scorpion with an iron wall. He found her ability very useful for support. It wasn't as powerful as his fireball, but it was still excellent. She wasn't doing anything, so he told her to stop wasting time and finish off the monster. The girl began casting a spell, which destroyed the ice wall along with the monster, causing her to gain 3 levels at once. This impressed the MC, but they didn't have time to waste because another scorpion was already attacking her from behind. He rushed forward, warning her to be careful, and he manages to push her away, conjuring a fireball. He throws it at the monster, causing a massive explosion, and catches the girl in his arms. Her eyes even start to shine, so we already know. If she blushes, it means she's fallen for him. He steps back and tells her to get up because they need to move to the next location, and she nods in agreement. Walking through the forest, he asks her how old she is, and she replies that she's 21. He says she should have entered the first world at 18. Why is her level still so low? Stopping in his tracks, he looks back and asks what's wrong with her. The girl starts to remove her hood and thanks him for helping her level up, saying he can leave now. She offers to pay him 10,000 yuan but asks him not to tell her sister about it. Looking at her with a puzzled expression, he says he thought she couldn't even speak, but he continues, saying she doesn't need to worry because he'll help her complete the first world. She looks startled and says she brings bad luck. He responds that it makes him curious, then asks what it means to be a misfortune mage. The girl explains that a misfortune mage is someone who constantly brings trouble to others. The two stare at each other as a group approaches, and one of them says that whoever accepts the task will face a horrible death, or a great reward if they complete it. Excited, the other men say that today is the day they'll act with justice, then shout to capture her. Frightened, she says the two of them are no match for that group and tells him to leave because she's their only target. With his eyes glowing and beginning to conjure his ice staff, the MC says they're trying to take his 400,000 without his permission. A third person approaches and says it's exciting that a fight is about to happen. It's Yao's group, with all his subordinates, approaching them. One of the men from the other group recognizes the rich heir and says they better leave. Otherwise, there will be trouble, but the boss tells him to shut up. The leader of the first group approaches, trying to greet him, but Yao tells him to be quiet as well. Then walks up to the protagonist, standing face to face, saying they've finally met again. Provocatively, the MC asks if he's there to lose more equipment, adding that he can't use his resurrection scroll again yet. Yao turns his back, ordering his subordinates to draw their weapons, which they immediately obey. All this happens with the girl we now know as Plain Face. That's not her real name, just her nickname in the world. The MC stands in front of her, showing no intention of retreating. This catches Yao's attention, and he wonders why the MC reacted that way. Looking back, he sees that his group drew their swords and weapons but didn't move. Frustrated, he hits one of them on the head and asks if they even understood what he said. He wants them to surround the MC. The subordinates finally understand the command and obey. Are they all going to attack the two of them at the same time? They won't last even two of the MC's spells. With the men surrounding Zhang Yu in plain face, she moves closer to the boy. But he doesn't move, just analyzes the situation. Suddenly, they all take out gifts and place them in front of the protagonist, asking him to accept them, completely catching the two off guard. Plain face begins trembling, not understanding what on earth is happening, and the ex-girlfriend is also confused, shouting at her brother Yao to explain what he's doing, but he tells her to shut up. Excited, Yao approaches the group and says he knows the MC isn't afraid of strength, and he didn't want to resort to that because it would show insincerity on his part. Those gifts are rare treasures he specially obtained for Zero, given from the bottom of his heart, on the condition that he accepts joining his guild and working for him. All those gifts would be Zero's, along with a salary offer, 50,000 per month. Plain Face and the leader of the other group are shocked. That amount was more than enough to cover his brother's medical expenses. The ex-girlfriend says he should accept the offer, as he's too poor, and that amount would never be within his reach. Although it seems like a good attitude, we know the girl's true intention is to humiliate the MC when given the chance. Zhang Yu says he only respects those who are stronger than him and suggests Yao consider using force. Maybe then he would accept his offer. Lin Yu asks if he has gone crazy. That salary was more than he could make in a year. He didn't have the right to refuse such an offer. The MC humiliates her, saying he isn't like her, someone who would rather be a dog than a human. This infuriates her, wounding her ego. Zero isn't interested in anything else. He asks Yao if he still wants to fight. Otherwise, it's better to step aside. Yao tells them to let him go. The MC walks past him without saying a word, and Yu starts yelling, asking if he was really going to let him leave, accusing him of not taking Yao's words seriously. Already irritated, Yao asks if there's something wrong with her hearing. He had said to let him go. At that moment, she backs down and obeys his command. One of the subordinates says that the MC had already defeated him once and was still being disrespectful. But Yao interrupts him with a punch to the face, saying he doesn't understand anything. Putting on a cheerful face, Yao says that what you can have is what you desire most. Otherwise, it wouldn't be valuable in your eyes. And we already know, right? If he's blushing, it means he's in love. The MC just gained another admirer. Let us know in the comments if you ship this couple. The protagonist's ex-girlfriend approaches Yao's brother and asks when he changed his mind about eliminating Zhang Yu. The boy replies that it was probably after being defeated the first time. He notes that she keeps emphasizing how poor the MC's family is and asks her how an ordinary beast tamer could have so much strength. This guy wasn't just anyone. Yao wanted to recruit him for his guild to work under him. This makes the girl furious. She starts thinking that she knows him better than anyone else. He's just a poor guy, and she'll make him kneel before her again. Plain Face thanks the MC again for his protection, but he says it's unnecessary. All he wants is the 400,000 yuan payment. She then responds that he won't be able to complete the mission, but Zero asks why she posted the mission on the forum if she had no confidence in it. The girl explains that her sister was the one who posted it. She had already given up on completing the world's missions, and then she shows her status window. She had a penalty that allowed only one person in her group, and if one of them died, both would perish. Additionally, there were other penalties that applied only to her. Zhang Yu notices that this was a special kind of profession. In his previous life, aside from base professions and life professions, there also existed a category of special professions. If someone managed to break the restrictions of their profession, they would have a high chance of evolving into a much stronger profession, perhaps a mythical or legendary one. Unfortunately, most people fail to break the restrictions and disappear from the world as if they were just ordinary people. Plainface explains that ever since awakening, she had tried hundreds of times but failed. She also couldn't be in a group with a level difference greater than 10. How could a team of only 2 people with a maximum level difference of 10 defeat the first world's boss? She gets up and starts walking away, telling him to leave too. But the MC says, "What if I say I can?" He says he can help her clear the first world. The girl is shocked. Approaching him, she asks if he's serious. For 3 years, she had been dreaming of breaking the restrictions of her profession and becoming someone recognized. Could she finally achieve that now? The MC removes her hand from his arm and tells her to stop talking nonsense. It was time for them to complete the first world's mission. In the first world, adventurers must complete the world missions to qualify for the World Boss Challenge. First, defeat 1,000 monsters, and second, collect 10 silver coins. She was amazed that he managed to complete both tasks in just a few hours. Was this his true strength? With the prerequisites complete, the MC then asks if they can go face the world boss now. She agrees and says she's ready, but he looks at her and asks what's wrong. She says it's nothing much, just that she finds it a bit strange that someone as strong as him accepted the mission to help her complete the world. The MC chuckles and replies that it's because he's a second-class individual, and this impresses her. But the truth was he was too embarrassed to admit he was completely broke and out of money. The system shows that the prerequisites to face the boss are complete, and asks if they want to face it now. The MC presses the button to accept the challenge, and the system informs him that he has unlocked the nightmare of the first world, the Abyss Demon. A portal opens in front of them, and he asks if she's ready. She grabs her staff and says yes, so the two start walking into the portal. The system informs them that they've entered the Abyss Demon's lair. It looks like a crypt. They only have 1 hour to complete the mission of defeating the boss, which is the Berserker Boar King, and a countdown begins. Still informing them, the system says that if they fail to defeat the boss, they'll have to redo the world mission to face it again. The MC throws some potions to the girl and says it's time to go. Impressed, she says those items are very expensive, a resurrection scroll and other high-value potions. He says that even if he can defeat the boss alone, it's better to be prepared for any unforeseen circumstances. Summoning his scorpion, he tells her to equip herself with as much as she can, using items they found earlier and also Yao's armor. With those items equipped, they'll be ready to handle the boss. The scorpion receives the equipment, and its stats are significantly increased. The boar is approaching, and then it appears in front of them, massive, with tusks that look like steel and even wearing earrings. It's a punk metal-loving boar, apparently. It begins roaring in rage, and its stats reveal it to be level 10 and a 2-star boss. Jingyan, Plainface's real name, starts trembling and tells herself that this time they will succeed, but the memories of previous attempts still haunt her. The MC notices her behavior and attributes it to some trauma related to the first world's boss, which must have affected her psychologically. He tells her to just hide and focus on healing the scorpion, and she asks what he plans to do, to which he simply replies that, obviously, he's going to handle this little piggy. The boss charges with full force, roaring at the protagonist, and he begins conjuring the super fireball. Several spells hit the monster, but when the dust settles, he realizes the damage was minimal, and the monster is still charging at them. That's expected from a boss. Causing damage to it won't be an easy task. The monster lunges to attack, but the scorpion places itself between the two to defend its master. Even with the ground cracking beneath it, the scorpion manages to withstand the boss's attack, and the protagonist seizes the opportunity to launch another attack with a super fireball. Several fireballs hit the Boar King, but it doesn't stop its assault. Breaking free from the scorpion, it targets the MC again. Zero thinks that no matter how strong and tough its hide is, as long as the scorpion keeps holding it back, he can defeat it. The pet manages to return close to the boss and strikes it with its pincers, but it gets flung away by the boar's sheer strength. The boar pauses for a moment, staring at the necromancer and his pet. Zero reluctantly admits that this fight is truly not easy, and the boar charges again. Plainface shouts for him to dodge this attack, as it seems different. Even the Scorpion appears startled by this strike. But the MC doesn't even bother to move from his spot. He just needs to wait a little longer. The boar's reflection is already visible in his eyes due to its proximity, but he still needs to wait just a bit more. The boss is mere inches away from hitting the MC, and now is the time. Raising his ice staff, he conjures an ice prison that freezes the monster, and even deals a considerable amount of damage. Plainface shouts that bosses have a 50% resistance to control effects. This ice barrier won't last long. The monster roars and breaks free of the barrier. It is about to enter its frenzy state, but luckily, the Scorpion falls onto the monster, managing to pin it down for a moment. The Scorpion was taking damage, and Zero shouted to his companion to heal the pet. She began casting a healing spell, while the Scorpion tried to hold off the boar's strength. Even with Plainface healing, they still didn't have enough damage to defeat the monster, and she couldn't sustain the healing for much longer. The MC reassured her, saying they didn't need much more time, and then started casting a combined fire and ice spell. The explosion of flames struck the monster directly, while a wall of ice formed right in front of it, causing the boss to slam its head into the ice as it burned from the flames. Not even a king boar could withstand the damage from someone wielding 2-star metal equipment and a legendary profession. The flames grew stronger while the ice kept the boar from escaping. The MC approached the boss with extreme confidence. It screamed in pain, and Plainface was astonished by the protagonist's power. She had never seen anyone cast 2 spells simultaneously with such mastery. Finally, the monster stopped roaring, and it fell to the side, defeated by the 2 adventurers. They had managed to take down a level 10 boss by themselves. Among the items he received, the MC sent everything to the trading house to be sold, except for the frenzy coat and the frenzy ring, which he planned to reforge for future use. Plainface's system informed her that she had overcome the restrictions of her profession, allowing her to receive a base profession. Overwhelmed with emotion, she realized it wasn't a dream. She had finally broken free from the curse and now had an epic profession. A general system announcement congratulated the 2 for defeating the first world's boss, leaving everyone impressed by their achievement. Even more impressive was the fact that Plainface, carried by someone else, had managed to defeat the world boss. It was insane. 2 portals, one blue and one red, appeared near them, indicating they could proceed to the second world. The zombie siege. The red portal led to the second world, while the blue one allowed them to return to their original world. The MC decided it was best to return first. Plainface saw him stepping into the portal and asked where he was going. He replied that he was going to collect the reward from her sister. She then realized that he was the mysterious professional known as Zero, who had cleared the first world's secret domain. Back in the MC's original world, at the Sue Corporation building in Linhai City, a secretary approached a woman named Sue and informed her of a phone call. She answered, and the MC told her he would send his banking details for the money transfer. She asked him to wait, while she verified everything. Not even half a day had passed, and she remarked that he had already completed the mission. She thought it must be some kind of scam and handed some papers to the secretary. Plainface burst into the office, shouting to her sister that she had finally completed the mission. Her sister was astonished and listened as she explained that not only had she broken the curse of disaster, but she had also obtained an epic base profession. Her sister was overjoyed to hear this, as the Sue family had never had a professional above the rare level. She asked how Plainface managed it. Her sister even assumed she had taken a massive group to defeat the boss, but Plainface replied that she had only taken one person with her. Shocked, her sister asked if it was really true that only one person went with her. Sitting at her computer desk, she asked if the person who helped her was the Zero everyone was talking about on the forums. Plainface confirmed that it was. In a forum discussion, someone mentioned that the previous world clear record had been broken today, sparking numerous debates. Biting her nails, her sister noted that the 2 had reached an incredible milestone, breaking the record and being the first group to enter the second world. Excited about this, she shouted for an immediate meeting with the Sue family to discuss recruiting Zero to the Rain Pavilion at any cost. Zhang received a call from the hospital, informing him that the payment for the medical expenses had been received and that he should notify them if he needed anything else. Relieved, he asked them to continue taking care of his younger brother until he fully recovered, even though it would cost 50,000 yuan per month. Thinking about the cost of keeping Zhang's brother alive, the MC briefly considered accepting Yao's offer to join his guild. But just as he was mulling it over, his phone rang again. And when he answers, someone asks if he is interested in joining the Rain Pavilion Guild. In the meeting room, Plainface's sister introduces herself as Sijinia and makes a proposal to the protagonist, offering a monthly payment of 30,000 yuan plus bonuses. This payment comes at the perfect time, in Zero's opinion, and he immediately accepts, leaving the 2 extremely excited. He only explains that he has one condition: he can participate in the guild for major events or when they need him. but at other times, he wants his freedom. They remain silent for a moment, thinking about how to respond. One of the men in the room says that if he joins the guild, he's expected to work for them. Otherwise, what's the point of creating a guild? The MC makes it very clear that if it's not on his terms, he won't accept and ends the call. This prompts the CEO to ask the girl if he's truly necessary for the guild. She explains that he was the first of the newcomers to finish the first world in just half a day, breaking a century-old world record. He's a rare talent. The CEO still plans to argue, but he's interrupted by the younger sister, explaining to him, her uncle, that Zero is truly incredible. In Lian Ye's opinion, they could accept his terms for now and see how things develop with his participation in the guild. Su Qin agrees to the proposal but warns that if Zero doesn't respect the management, he'll personally decide the boy's fate. Looking at his phone screen, Zero thinks about how the Rain Pavilion Guild could be a good opportunity for him, even if it's not top-ranked. They call the MC back, and when he answers, the older sister says they accept his terms and asks when he can visit the company to finalize everything. He says he'll work remotely. There's no need to go to the office, as the entry points for worlds are the same for everyone. The girl gets irritated, and the MC asks if there's a problem with that. Reluctantly, she responds that there isn't, and they'll do things his way. Satisfied with the negotiation, the MC decides that now that his income is sorted, he can focus on strategy for the next world. The system asks which world he wants to enter, and he decides to go into the second world, the Zombie Siege. He begins stepping into the red portal, and as he steps into the second world, the system informs him that he's now in the safe zone called the City of Nothingness. The world's backstory is simple. Zombies surround the cities, so he needs to clear a dungeon and complete 3 world missions. The level requirement for the dungeon is 15, so he needs to level up, and the second task will take more time. The first zombie wave will arrive in 2 days. This information comes from a captain, an NPC with a mission. He complains about the zombies attacking the city and the lack of weapons for defense. Even though the city is in a safe zone, the constant zombie attacks create a stifling sense of danger. Catching the MC's attention, the captain says a battle could break out at any moment and asks him to gather materials to create weapons. There are several missions to complete within the city, and this one is the easiest. With the needed item, their attack range would increase. He accepts the mission and has to defeat zombies and collect 100 pieces of 3 different materials, which will yield some great rewards. He notices that with just the reward from this mission, he'll almost be done with the second world. Approaching the NPC, he says he'll handle it, prompting the captain to thank him. At the defense field outside the city, there's a fire, and zombies are burning but apparently taking no damage from it. Arriving at the site with his scorpion, the MC says it's time to get started, attacking the monsters continuously. The zombies attempt to counterattack the boy. One of them, which appears to have fiery wings, charges at the scorpion, but with just one pincer's attack, it's easily defeated. Still, the MC is frustrated because the zombies seem resistant to fire damage, making his job harder than it should be. Beginning to conjure his ice staff, he decides to change his strategy. Now he wants to see how much ice damage they can withstand. Zero shouts for the scorpion to attract as many flaming zombies as possible, and the pet roars loudly to draw the monster's attention. He grabs one of the zombies by the arms with his pincers and roars again. The MC remembers that he had equipped the scorpion with various items to prevent it from taking damage from monsters and feels satisfied to see that they are working. Although this harmonious connection with the pet felt a bit odd, now it was time for him to put on a show. Casting an ice spell, he planned to initiate a battle between ice and fire to see who was the strongest there. The ice explosion hit the zombie with force, and defeated it immediately. Analyzing the monster's loot, he found only a few copper coins and noticed that their drop rate was very low and of poor quality. Since that was the case, he began an ice massacre, quickly defeating countless monsters and earning better rewards in the process. After working all afternoon, he managed to collect about 50 fire-type corpses. He was still far from completing the mission. Zero started feeling hungry and decided to leave the world to look for food. But a terrifying roar caught his attention at that moment. He noticed the posture and wondered what it could be. A blue and red rift appeared before him. The boss of that area had reappeared. A zombie that looked like it had been trained by CBM stood before the protagonist. A level 14 ice and fire zombie, a magical type boss. Looking at the monster, he knew it must have an excellent drop rate, but could he defeat it? Given its resistance to both of the MC's spells, the boy didn't seem too concerned about this, as he looked at the boss with excitement, confusing the zombie. Shouldn't he be scared? Watching the MC summon his ice staff, the zombie gritted its teeth and charged at the protagonist with a loud roar. It punched the ground, conjuring a fire spell that trapped the protagonist's legs, catching him off guard. Taking advantage of the opportunity, it also summoned several ice lances and hurled them at the boy, hitting him and causing him to lose a large amount of health points. He began casting the combined fire and ice spell, but the damage the boss took was insignificant. Zero realized that his damage had been halved due to the boss's resistances. It was practically his worst enemy. He called his pet again and commanded it to attack the boss, but the scorpion was struck first, taking a massive amount of damage, leaving the protagonist anxious about the fight. The bodybuilder zombie started casting another spell, and multiple ice spikes appeared in front of it. Like a Gilgamesh Unlimited Zombies works, the spikes hit the armored scorpion hard, completely defeating it. It would take 3 hours to return and would come back weaker. A second system window appeared, informing him that he had activated the necromancer's passive ability, and his pet would return in 1 hour without penalties. Zero stared at the boss, thinking that compared to the first boss, this one was far too strong for him. But could he escape? A purple lightning bolt struck the boss, dealing over 100 damage and catching it completely off guard. The boy looked back and saw Plain Face behind him. It was amusing to realize he still called her 400k because of the money he earned through her. She shouted at him to focus on dealing damage while she concentrated on control abilities. He smiled and yelled that even with his damage halved, he would still take down the monster, then began casting multiple spells. The damage started to wear down the monster. Its health was finally depleting, and it began roaring in rage. Plain Face cast a fireball at the monster, and Zero wondered if the fireball could also immobilize it. The next moment, the girl used the lantern ability. Another purple lightning bolt struck the zombie while other spells remained active. Zero was impressed by the girl's power. She had managed to cast 3 spells simultaneously without difficulty. This was the power of the Forbidden Mage. Losing patience, the MC decided to attack with everything he had, even if his damage was halved, hitting the monster point blank with a fire and ice spell. Plain Face also decided to assist with damage, casting her own spells. Their combined attack defeated the monster, and the system informed Zero of his rewards. Several pieces of equipment appeared among the loot, and the MC suggested they split the rewards between them to thank her for her help. Plain Face says it wasn't necessary. She was already there because of a mission and happened to meet him. Helping him was just her way of thanking him. He replies that her sister had already settled the debt between them, but she insists, saying her sister and she are different people. Plain Face introduces herself as Su Jinyan and asks for Zero's name. He shakes her hand and says his name is Zhang Yu. Jinyan suggests they do the collection mission together since it would be much more efficient, and he asks what her profession's effect is. She specializes in crowd control magic, which gives her various buffs when using those abilities. The MC is impressed by this, but he starts walking away, prompting her to ask where he's going. He says he's heading back to the city and suggests they regroup in 10 minutes. Watching him walk away with admiration, she recalls a promise she made to herself, to marry whoever helped her overcome her limitations. But in the next moment, she feels embarrassed for thinking about such things. Back in the city, the MC analyzes his loot. He received 3 different pieces of equipment and a skill book. He sells the 1-star equipment and uses the rest to enhance his current powers, refining his gear. Now it's time to upgrade his skills, so he uses all the necessary energy to refine his spells. He receives a spell called Super Flame Missile and decides to test it right there in the middle of the city. The spell is quite fast, and he thinks to himself that with this new magic, monsters won't even get close to him. A system window pops up. It's an invitation from Su Jinyan's guild. He accepts the invitation and decides to meet her so they can continue their missions. Returning to the missions, the damage from his spells is now much stronger. Even though the zombies are resistant, they still can't withstand the power. He defeats a fire zombie with just 1 spell, and the 2 exchange compliments afterward. He comments on how strong her equipment is, and Jinyan responds that her sister gave it to her because it's the perfect set for a forbidden mage. The protagonist's look of disdain is evident, and he thinks about how great it must be to have a lot of money. Jinyan asks if he's hiding the visual effects of his equipment. He's too powerful, so his gear must be equally impressive. The MC simply replies that it's not because of his equipment. He's also a mythical class professional. The girl doesn't believe him, saying that when a mythical class professional awakens, some anomalies occur, and none of that has happened recently. Without hesitation, he just says to leave it at that and thinks to himself that his class didn't awaken in the usual way. After collecting all the fire and ice zombie cores, he invites her to gather the 3rd material, and she agrees. Before they have the chance to go to the new location, both receive a guild notice to meet in the zombie city within 10 minutes. Reading the notice, Jinyan wonders what Chinjun is up to now, as he didn't explain anything and just threatened everyone. The MC simply asks who he is. This guy is the Linhai branch leader of the guild. His father and her uncle are childhood friends, which is how he managed to become a leader. He says that since it's a guild operation, they'd better go see what's happening. A poisonous type zombie is roaring and attacking an area full of ordinary people. Some adventurers are thrown back by the impact of its attack. and it emits a purple smoke. The adventurers are trying to surround it, but many are already lying on the ground like discarded trash. Lin Yao's group is also in the same area, and someone is shouting at him, saying the Rain Pavilion Guild found the boss first, and ordering him to leave. Yao doesn't care and yells that power rules the world, then commands his companions to defeat the monster. A magic circle appears, and several fireballs start raining down on their location, hitting many of Lin Yao's adventurer companions. He screams, demanding to know who is causing all the chaos in his group, and the MC approaches, saying he's found him again and asks if he's planning to steal the boss that his guild is currently fighting. 1 hour earlier, a giant poisonous zombie had appeared in the city. The soldiers guarding the area began forming a shield barricade while archers fired from behind them. The boss shattered the arrows shot at him with a single punch, hitting multiple humans and knocking them down instantly. A smaller soldier shouted to the president that without the forbidden mage, they would have too much trouble taking on the boss. Yelling back, he asked what they were so afraid of. Jin Yan would arrive soon, and they just needed to hold their formation until she got there. As the two approached the scene, Jin Yan was recognized by others, especially for elevating her power as a forbidden mage. They noticed she was with the MC, but they didn't believe he was strong enough to have helped her. Hearing this, she asked him not to pay attention to such comments. She blushed at what she had just said, and Chen noticed she had arrived, but as he went to greet her, he saw the protagonist and asked why she was alone with him. Jin Yan replied that she could choose who to associate with, and he had no right to question her. He merely said he was worried about her. The girl replied that he didn't need to worry. She knew who had good intentions and who didn't. She then changed the subject, asking why the guild had been assembled. Chen explained that the city structure had been restored, and the corpse king had appeared. Jin Yan said that this boss had a very low spawn probability, and that if their guild could defeat it, their prestige would rise significantly. The MC was going along with her but was interrupted by the president, who said he didn't need to come. Zero asked why not, and the president replied that the boy's class was too weak and he would only be a burden to the group. Everyone in the guild group judged the protagonist by his class and equipment, thinking he was too weak to handle the mission. Plain Face tried to argue, asking if they even knew who the MC was, but he interrupted her, saying the decision was up to the president. She bit her lip and grabbed Zero's arm, saying that if he didn't go, she wouldn't go either. The president panicked and said he only didn't want the boy to get killed in battle, so he allowed him to come, but without participating in the fight. He took her by the arm and led her to the boss's location so she could use her control spells against it to help defeat it. She promised to return soon. Even though a level 15 boss would be challenging, it was only a matter of time with Jin Yan on the team. This was an opportunity for the MC to analyze the guild's strength. Someone called his name, and he appeared in the middle of Lin Yao's group. Everyone there was impressed by the boy's power, and Yao asked if he had joined the Yenyu Pavilion. Freaking out, the ex-girlfriend yelled at the boy, saying he had rejected Yao's invitation and was now in a guild. She tried to insult him, but she was immediately struck by a spell, cast by none other than Jin Yan, who remarked that things were much clearer now. Yao asked Zero how much Yenyu was paying him and said he would double, no, triple the offer, and make him the guild's vice president. Plain Face shouted, asking how he could dare try to steal her teammate right in front of her. Zero calmly said that he valued integrity, and now that he had accepted Yenyu Pavilion's invitation, he wouldn't consider other offers at the moment. But he added that no one could predict the future. Who knows what might happen? Yao was pleased with this response, and said Zero could join his guild whenever he wanted. The doors would always be open for him. He then commanded his subordinates to retreat, but they argued that they were close to defeating the boss. Did he really want everyone to pull back? Yao shouted, asking if they truly needed that boss. He was thinking about the future and sticking to his decision. As they left, it became clear that Yao was actually a decent guy. The real problem was the MC's ex-girlfriend, who was insufferable. Jin Yan thanked Zero for his stance, but he said it wasn't necessary. He was just doing what he should. The boss, who had been silently watching the entire conversation, finally decided to act and punched at the two, who dodged easily. Apparently, it wielded a spiked mace, and this was the Abyss Corpse King. The MC declared that he would challenge it now, and immediately began casting his combined ice and fire spell. The fire bolt struck the monster's stomach, knocking it backward, and everyone is astonished by the MC's display of power. He was supposed to be a weak and poor beast tamer, yet he dealt significant damage to the monster, calling Plain Face. 400k. Again, he tells her to act, and she agrees to follow the plan. The monster begins roaring as a fire prison immobilizes it, landing a fireball point blank on the monster. The boss is finally defeated with relative ease by the two of them. Everyone around is still speechless, witnessing what the protagonist and the forbidden mage accomplished almost effortlessly. That guy was incredibly impressive. Jin Yan, thanking him again, says that without him, the other guild might have stolen the boss. but he replies once more that he only did what he had to. The group nearby is excited to see his admirable attitude, also regarding him as a true master. Back in the city, the MC and the girl walk together, with her holding onto his arm, and the guild president greets them, asking if they managed to steal the boss from the other guild and defeat it. Another member quickly updates him, informing him about what happened with the Supreme Guild. This leaves the president impressed by the MC's strength. The other man says that with someone like him in the guild, they would become much stronger, much faster. But unwilling to accept reality, the president starts shouting at the boy, accusing him of just landing the final blow to steal the boss. Pointing a finger at Zero's chest, he yells that no matter who he is, if he doesn't follow his commands, he has the right to expel him. Zero grabs the president's finger and says he remembers it was the president who told him not to move while they were facing the boss. Another man yells at him, asking how he dares to lay a finger on the guild master. Their guild's objective was to defeat the boss. The boy asks if they managed to complete the guild's task or not. Jinyan steps in and speaks to Chin, saying that without Zero's help, they would have lost the boss and everyone would have been defeated, so they should thank him. The rest of the group stays silent at her words, and she turns to the MC and says they should go, as they still need to continue and complete the world mission. Staying behind, it's clear the president is furious, and he orders one of his subordinates to keep an eye on Zero and report any weakness to him immediately. In a forest far away, a purple mist fills the area, and Jinyan covers her nose because the smell is terrible. This is the forest of the poison zombies. Zero explains that poison zombies will be much harder to handle than the other two types, so it's time to move. She asks if they have a higher attack power, but he says that although they lack ice or fire attributes, they have a very dangerous ability. With their toxic bodies, they inflict poison damage based on the target's maximum health, and it cannot be purified. The girl becomes scared, but he calmly explains that she can just keep using heal over time, and everything will be fine. She nods in understanding, but then she pulls an item from her bag and says it's a reward for completing the guild mission, handing him a pair of boots. He thanks her, and they head off to the mission. At the location where the zombies are, they begin using spells to immobilize them. Jinyan tells him to hurry up and defeat the monster. He uses his combined spell and hits the zombie squarely in the middle, throwing it back and defeating it. Jinyan is still impressed by the boy's strength. He can defeat the monsters with just one spell, and he thanks her for her support as well. Walking through the forest, the MC looks back, sensing something. He has likely noticed someone is following them. Back in the city, someone reports to the guild master, saying the MC is working on the second world mission with Jinyan, and they seem to get along well. Seething with jealousy, the guild master shouts that since she awakened as a mage of calamity, she hasn't smiled or talked to anyone. They need to do something. A system window pops up before them with an announcement. It's a wave defense mission set to start in 30 minutes. Seeing this makes the guild master very satisfied. Zero had challenged him and stolen his woman. He could just remove him from the guild, but he wanted to do worse. The other man says that in the second world, there are resurrection scrolls, and they were still in the safe zone, so eliminating him wouldn't be easy. However, the GM explains that under the second world's rules, with an invasion like this, the safe zone is removed. That way, getting rid of him wouldn't be difficult. A trail of bodies lay in the poisoned forest, and several coins were being collected by the duo. The girl celebrates, saying they were just a few zombies away from completing the world mission. They had 30 minutes left until the invasion, so it was time to hurry. A zombie appeared behind the protagonist, biting his shoulder. Jinyan cast her spell to help the MC, accidentally striking the zombie's mouth with her staff, defeating it instantly by piercing its head with the blow. Ketchup started dripping onto the ground, and she asked if he was okay. He replied that it was expected for him to get attacked at some point, and then suggested they return to the city. They were still being followed and watched from a distance. Back in the city, out of nowhere, they turned in the mission and received their rewards. The MC reached level 16, and Jinyan also reached level 16. She mentioned that she had reached level 16 and that the mission had rewarded her with 2 2-star equipment pieces. She asked what he received. Summoning his pet again, he replied that he had leveled up to 17. The girl commented that if he weren't a beast tamer who had to share XP with his pet, he'd already be at level 20. The first zombie wave would appear soon, and she asked if he wanted to refine his new equipment first. He admitted he had almost forgotten about that. Opening the equipment windows, he did what he usually did, used quick refinement on what he could. A chest plate and a pair of boots were maxed out, allowing him to equip them. With that equipment and his level 15 scorpion, it was nearly impossible for him to be defeated in the second world. He announced he was ready and called her to go defeat some zombies, and she was excited to accompany him. But she received a call and wondered who it could be. It was a message from Suchin, summoning her to the office. Everyone in the guild was waiting for her arrival, and he had sent a ride to pick her up. Explaining that something urgent seemed to have come up for her, she apologized for not being able to fight zombies with him. He assured her it was fine, and she could go. She seemed nervous, saying that even if the monsters were lower level than him, it could still be dangerous, so she asked him to be careful. Without much concern, the MC thanked her and promised to take care of himself to avoid any harm. A portal appeared in front of the boy, and he could see the city walls. The system informed him that the zombie wave was right in front of them, and that they needed to find cover immediately. The zombie wave was starting. From that moment on, no one could leave, and the city's protective mechanisms were deactivated. They needed to defeat 50 monsters to complete the mission, and a gate opened, allowing hordes of frenzied zombies to invade. Some adventurers were immediately surrounded, nervous and anticipating their defeat, when an explosion occurred. The MC thought this zombie wave was infinite, but it would retreat after 1 hour of attacking. In that case, he only needed to eliminate 50 zombies before taking a rest. He saw some guild messages, with someone asking for help in the northern city because zombies had overrun it, and they were trapped. Zero smiled and said he was on his way. They just needed to hold on for a moment. Arriving at the location, the city appeared deserted, but there were a few lifeless bodies scattered on the ground. 2 figures looked out from a window, calling Zero an idiot for coming to their rescue. Still uncertain, the guild master asked the other man if he was sure Zero's defense wasn't too high. He mentioned the zombie bite Zero had taken earlier. He also added that he had bribed some men to attack him, and that they were waiting to ambush him in the alley. Zero would be defeated easily. The GM started laughing and already celebrating, saying that even if Zero used a resurrection scroll, his men would make sure he never returned. He was completely deranged, a la Lloyd Frontera, claiming that Jean Yen belonged to him, and only him. No one would take her away from him. Zero entered the alley and announced his presence, asking if they realized it was a trap. Those who understood. He takes another step, and immediately several arrows are fired in his direction. Without hesitation, he summons his pet, which repels all the arrows effortlessly, terrifying the enemies with its massive size. They begin screaming in panic, thinking he was just an ordinary, weak beast tamer. The system notifies him that he was maliciously attacked by another professional, and now has 10 minutes to counterattack without penalty. It's his turn. Starting a small massacre, the MC calmly defeats several professionals in the area, walking slowly as it unfolds. Suchin is stunned. How could he be so strong? He shouts at his subordinate, demanding to know why Zero's defense wasn't as low as they expected, but the man can't explain what just happened. An explosion occurs near the window they're in, forcing them to retreat, and as the dust settles, the MC is seen approaching with his hands in his pockets. Zero asks if they really thought they could trap him with such cheap tricks. Chin asks what he means by that, and he explains that he knew someone had started following him after he defeated the Corpse King. They were just waiting for an opportunity to attack him. He pretended to be weak on purpose, just to deceive those following him. The MC was curious about what they would do, so he allowed himself to be tracked. Drawing a bow and aiming an arrow directly at Zero, Chin says he doesn't care about being discovered because he'll take his life right there. But Zero pulls out his ice staff and instantly reacts with an ice spell, hitting Suchin directly. Another man shouts that the MC is challenging his superior and attempting to assassinate the guild leader, ordering others to eliminate him immediately. One man follows the command and charges at the MC, who starts conjuring a fireball, launching it at the attacker, and completely incinerating him. Suchin is shocked. He had instantly defeated an elite-level assassin. Who on earth was this guy? The flames consume the guild master immediately, and he too is defeated with just one blow. The MC responds that he is someone Chin should never have offended. A system window appears, notifying everyone that Suchin was defeated by Zero, a level 17 necromancer. One of the guild master's men asks if this is the same Zero who completed the first world in half a day, and wonders what kind of necromancer class he has. He was supposed to be a mere beast tamer. They finally realize why he pretended to be weak in front of everyone, and the guild master declares Zhang Yu his mortal enemy. At the Su Corporation's office tower, someone shouts in disagreement. It's the youngest sister, yelling that she doesn't like Suchin and that she has said so before. But her uncle explains that this isn't about liking him. Love develops over time, and says he has a small gift for her, several items worth millions of yuan that she could use in her adventures. He adds that he only has one son, Chen Jun, who will inherit all his fortune one day, and if she marries him, it will all be hers too. Jin Yan thanks her uncle for his kindness but firmly states that she will decide her own future. The man gives her a threatening look, but it's her uncle who shouts at her, saying they spent a fortune on her upbringing and education, only for her to say such absurd things to Su Chen's father. The older sister steps forward, placing a hand on Jin Yan's shoulder, and calmly explains that the girl is not an object. No one can decide her life but her. Looking at Jin Yan, The older sister says that no matter what happens, she will always support her little sister's decisions, leaving Jinyan deeply grateful. Phones belonging to Su Chen's father and the older sister start ringing, drawing everyone's attention. When they answer, they hear the news that Chen was eliminated by Zhang Yu. Su Chen's father begins complaining that he had allowed his son to stoop to being a guild leader, and now the Su Corporation's people dared to exterminate him. But the girl's uncle urges him to calm down, suggesting it might be some kind of misunderstanding. The man stands up and declares that if anything happens to his son, he won't let it slide. Then he storms out. As the door closes, the girl's uncle remarks that this was the man they recommended. Did they realize how much the Chen family had sponsored the corporation? Jinyan defends the protagonist, stating that under no circumstances would he ever do something like that. The uncle shouted at them, saying it was enough. They should bring him to the corporation and make him kneel to apologize to the Chen family, or he would leave the guild. This left Jinyan speechless and frightened, while her older sister picked up her phone to call him. Answering the call, the girl asked where the MC was and whether it was true that he had killed Qinjun. He didn't answer her question. Instead, he simply resigned from the guild and said he would leave immediately. The older sister tried to reason with him, saying she was sure he had acted in self-defense and that she would clear his name, so he shouldn't act impulsively. But his response was short and simple. There was no need to try to clear his name. They could let it go. Zhang Yu believed cutting ties with the Yenyu Pavilion Guild was the best option for him. Otherwise, Chen Jun would keep seeking revenge. As for his brother's medical expenses, he only needed to make another 15,000 by selling equipment. His priority was to finish the second world quickly. There were still 2 waves of zombies to defeat, allowing him to complete the world missions and move on to the third. The system announced that the second wave was about to start, and that everyone should prepare. In that world, there were 3 dungeons he could tackle, with the Land of Death being the hardest, and it had a low drop rate for valuable loot. At level 17, the MC thought he could handle the level 20 challenge of the Land of Death alone without much trouble, but for level 15 players, someone approached the MC, catching his attention. It seemed to be a group of bandits, and their leader asked if he was the famous beast tamer of the Yenyu Pavilion. The MC put on a serious face and told him to get out of his way, but the leader challenged him, saying he wouldn't move, and asked what the boy would do now. The other men joined in, and Zero realized they were deliberately trying to provoke him, so he asked how much Chinjun had paid them. The man gave the MC credit for catching on quickly. Each of them had received 5,000 and a resurrection scroll if they managed to eliminate him. Even if he could defeat them all, he couldn't attack first. Gaining sin points would seriously hinder his plans. But salvation arrived in the form of Lin Yao, who announced that he would pay double for them to eliminate the Yenyu Pavilion president, plus an additional 50,000 as compensation. The mercenaries were shocked, asking who he thought he was to make such a generous offer. One of Yao's companions explained who he was, and the mercenaries immediately addressed him as Master Yao. The leader shouted at them, asking why they hadn't already left to follow the boy's orders. They promptly left. Yao said he had heard that the MC had been kicked out of the Chen Pavilion, and even if they tried to mess with the boy, he would protect him from such individuals. Zero said he still wasn't interested in joining Yao's guild but added that they could discuss it another time. Yao's subordinate complained, but he simply replied that the MC was traumatized by the Yenyu Pavilion, so his behavior was understandable. Leaving the guild hadn't avoided conflict with Qinjun, but it seemed like he wanted trouble anyway, so the MC had no choice. Unfazed, the MC entered the Black Corpse's nest alone. It was level 15, but he thought doing it solo was best because he would keep all the rewards for himself. He arrived at an old NPC with closed eyes, who asked if the MC was there to challenge the Black Corpse's dungeon. Pulling out a brightly shining emerald, the old man handed it to him, and wished him good luck when the boy confirmed he was there to complete the dungeon. The emerald was a token that could be refined to transform the Black Corpse's nest into a secret dungeon, but it required a large amount of energy. Fortunately, this wasn't a problem for the protagonist. Even though the refinement cost was immeasurable, so was his surplus energy, and he refined the stone. Elsewhere in the forest, someone shouted for Qinjun not to run. The shouts came from the mercenaries Yao had hired to eliminate him. They ran as fast as they could to escape death, and Qinjun couldn't understand why the mercenaries he had hired earlier had turned against him. His companion explained that it was Zhang Yu's doing. The man elaborated, saying that Qinjun couldn't use his resurrection scroll for a few days, so it would be safer for him to hide for a while. He becomes furious and swears to kill the protagonist once again. A system announcement appears, notifying everyone that a corpse nest has been transformed into a dungeon, offering a free resurrection for 2 hours as a reward. Excited, Qinjun says that with this free resurrection, he can clear a level 15 dungeon like the Black Corpse Nest, and orders his team to assemble. While defeating a monster, Yao sees the system announcement, and is equally thrilled. He couldn't use a resurrection scroll for a few days, so this came at the perfect time. He orders his team to head to the nest. Meanwhile, the MC was already clearing out all the monsters inside because one of the world tasks was to fully complete a dungeon. With the enhanced token effects, the dungeon rewards would be tempting to everyone, and the MC suspected Chengjun would come as well. Something emerges from the monster's body, as if its soul is being extracted. The MC wanted to ensure his plan unfolded smoothly, so he had to deal with the gate guardian first. A gigantic zombie lord appears behind him, and he starts preparing for battle. Explosions erupt. Pieces of the monster fly everywhere, and in the end, the dungeon's final boss is defeated. Zero steps on the monster and demands it be honest, or he'll turn it into dust, just like its subordinates. The system announces that a large number of challengers have entered the Black Corpse nest, and the MC realizes that upgrading the nest attracted far too many people. Using a sensing ability, he detects that not only is Su Jinyan there, but Lin Yao's Supreme Guild has also arrived. He has only one target, so he plans to avoid involving others in this conflict. He grabs his token and activates the permission modification function. The emerald begins to glow, and the system informs him that he can choose which permissions to modify. A battle is raging among the players inside the cave, and Su Qin shouts at Jinyan not to stray too far from him, but she plans to separate from the group to search for Zhang Yu. She genuinely doesn't care about the lives of those around her, only about her future love. The system announces that it's now total war. The nest is locked from the inside, and there's no more resurrection. They must defeat 500 zombies and their lord. Terrified and enraged, Su Qin wonders how insane someone must be to change the dungeon's permissions to this. It's as if they have a death wish. One of his men approaches and suggests that maybe the person who did this was Zhang Yu, intending to lure them in. Chen refuses to believe it. The cost of upgrading a token was far too high to waste on something as frivolous as a trap. Jin Yen, however, points out that the permissions were clearly altered to target someone, but Chen remains skeptical that it was the MC. Assuming a more confident stance, he declares that no matter the permissions, he will complete the dungeon's task and escape with its rewards. Jin Yen silently thinks he should start praying for his own soul. Gathering his men, Su Qin says all they need to do is defeat the boss, and the first clear rewards will belong to the Rain Pavilion. Someone calls his attention, saying it looks like there's someone ahead of them. Disbelieving, he asks who could possibly be faster than their guild. Zero then speaks, saying he's glad they've finally arrived. Chen is startled, but Jin Yen recognizes the voice and begins to blush. The boy is standing atop the already defeated boss, waiting for Su Chen's arrival, and says he's been expecting them for quite some time. Excited, Jin Yen asks Zhang Yu what he's doing there. She was just about to search for him. Chen interrupts their conversation, demanding to know if he activated the secret realm, and where he got the golden token for activation. Zero doesn't respond and, jumping to the ground, asks if Chen wasn't the one who swore to kill him. Now's the chance, and he begins to approach. Chen is nervous. He came here thinking he could take advantage of the free resurrection but walked into a trap that could lead to his complete demise. Placing his men in front of him, he says the MC can't touch him because he has strong allies who the MC won't be able to defeat. And he yells at Jin Yen to use her control power to immobilize Zero so they can have a chance to defeat him. But she refuses to obey him. This made the man extremely nervous, but even so, he ordered his men to attack Zhang Yu and eliminate him. They were hesitant, especially after seeing the boss defeated in the room. Chen shouted, asking what they were afraid of. If they were killed there, he would compensate them with a lot of money. They could defeat him. The two men still had a resurrection scroll left. The offer was tempting. People die for riches, and birds die for food. They apologized to the MC and charged at him. Smiling, Zhang Yu said, compared to a wave of level 9 monsters, what was the Yenyu Pavilion? With a single strike, he advanced through all the men, slashing through them and inflicting critical damage. They were all burned. The system informed him of their elimination and confirmed that he didn't receive penalty points. He could act freely without worry. Shin screamed for the remaining men to attack the boss and complete the secret realm before the MC could. While he was busy fighting, the armored scorpion was summoned in front of the group, slamming the ground and scattering them away from the boss. They were startled by the size of the boy's pet, but one of them dismissed it as a weak monster and said he'd handle it. Swinging his sword with full force at the scorpion's head, the man realized he had dealt no damage. Even as a level 14 warrior with all his points and strength, he wasn't strong enough to harm the protagonist's pet. Zero explained that his pet was an elite level 15 armored scorpion equipped with multiple 2-star items. It would have been strange if it had taken any damage. Several arrows were launched, hitting the shields of Su Chen's group. Someone shouted they would pay 20,000 for each man eliminated from the Yenyu Pavilion. They had been ambushed. The MC silently observed the scene. As he saw several men approaching, it was Lin Yao's group. They passed by the protagonist without attacking him, and clashed with the Yenyu Pavilion members. Yao announced he was there to help the MC and wouldn't let those wretched fools cause him any harm. The MC looked at this with dissatisfaction. He hadn't wanted to see Yao again. Chen screamed, asking what he meant by that, claiming he hadn't tried to attack anyone from Yao's group. But Yao replied that he'd heard Chen liked using money to get things done, so he decided to see if Chen's money was greater than his. Yao declared to everyone present that he'd give them a chance to get rich. Anyone who eliminated Su Chen, the guild master, would receive 1 million. Even Chen's subordinates began hesitating, considering the offer, which frightened Chen. He yelled, asking if they dared betray him. A strange sound began echoing, and everyone wondered what was happening. Something resembling the boss's soul appeared above them all. The MC remembered that when a boss's health bar gets too low, there's a chance it could turn berserk, and it seemed this was the case. The system window appeared, informing all adventurers that the dungeon boss had evolved into a level 17, 3-star berserker. Lin Yao screamed in fear, having no idea that bosses could level up and improve in quality. Now things were truly terrifying. The monster launched its first attack, hitting the ground, shattering it, and sending several adventurers flying. Another window appeared, this time informing everyone that due to the increased difficulty, the dungeon's exit gate had been forcibly opened. They could flee. As Su Chen took the opportunity to escape, because being a weak villain isn't enough, you also have to be a coward. He noticed Lin Yao sitting scared near the boss, which hadn't noticed him yet. Grabbing his bow and laughing, Chen said he'd make Yao pay right then and there. The arrow shot by Su Chen struck the zombie lord's elbow, drawing its attention to where Yao was. The boss raised its arm to strike, turning toward Lin Yao, and the boy began begging for help. The MC immediately summoned his scorpion, which appeared just in time to block the boss's strike. Zero noticed that the boss's upgrade had been significant, dealing substantial damage to the scorpion's health bar. Su Chen was nearly at the exit portal, yelling that they would never defeat him, not even in 10,000 years. He was escaping now. Zhang Yu yells at him to stop, but the scorpion behind him is being beaten by the boss, while Lin Yao is still crying for help, unable to get up and flee. Zero looks back, realizing he can only use his teleportation once. If he uses it to eliminate Chen, Yao would also be taken out for good. Planting his foot on the ground, he instantly appears next to Lin Yao, conjuring an ice wall to save the other boy's life. Trapped by the ice, the zombie begins roaring, and Zero commands Lin Yao to run as fast as he can. Breaking through the ice wall, the monster advances again, striking the ground near them, but they manage to escape the hit. Unfortunately, the protagonist's ice magic is only at level A, dealing just a few hundred points of damage to the boss. A level 17 boss is significantly harder to handle than anything before, especially as it's a 3-star boss. Zero can only rely on his high agility to find opportunities to cast spells and counter the boss. A fire arrow hits the monster, but the damage is practically negligible. Watching the fight, Lin Yao shouts at one of his companions to stop standing around and help in combat, but they claim they're too weak to contribute. Despite its size, the boss is incredibly fast and manages to land a few critical hits on the protagonist. Though he dodges most of the damage, he falls to his knees on the ground, and the monster seizes the opportunity to strike, catching the protagonist off guard. This wouldn't end well. The blow is just inches away from hitting the MC square on the head, but a purple spell, we all know who it's from, hits the monster dead on, saving the boy at the last second. Jin Yan has arrived, using a confinement spell that gives the protagonist a chance to act. Grabbing his fire staff, he starts conjuring a fireball, and lands consecutive hits on the boss. The others present, incredulous, ask Lin Yao if those two are really defeating a 3-star boss on their own. It's impressive. Yao is thrilled to see the MC in action. If it were them instead of those two, they would have been wiped out tens of thousands of times already. This only makes him want even more to recruit the two into the Supreme Guild, but his men remark that he couldn't handle those two in his guild. Multiple fireballs keep hitting the monster. The protagonist doesn't stop attacking. Zero thinks, fortunately, the monster's health bar is already low, which will reduce the time needed to finish it off. Jin Yan shouts to the MC that he only needs to land the final blow, but he calmly says that he's the Secret Realm's requisitioner. The girl is startled upon hearing this, but she quickly understands and acts, conjuring a fire spell that strikes the monster from above, finally defeating it completely. Everyone in the boss area gains enough XP to level up, and the system congratulates the girl for defeating the dungeon boss, awarding her high-quality rewards. The men begin celebrating their victory, and Yao runs to hug the protagonist, grateful for being saved from death. But Zero isn't interested in hugs from other men. Stopping his attempt to hug him, Yao asks what he should do, and then decides to offer him $1 million. Zhang Yu asks if he has anything in life besides money, to which Yao replies that he does. His dream is to recruit Zero into the guild and turn it into the strongest guild in the world. He pleads for him to join. His family owns the largest pharmacy in Lehigh, so if Zero joins his guild, he'll have an infinite supply of medicine. But the MC still isn't interested. Yao simply asks to finish his pitch. His family collaborates with other powerful families, including the Xiao family. That name catches the boy's attention. It's the family of the master blacksmith. Yao continues, explaining that his father is an old friend of the Xiao family's leader, and as long as they have the necessary materials, they can forge anything. Shan Yu stops to think and realizes that forging equipment could provide much better quality than buying it. Yao adds that if Zero doesn't want to join, it's no problem. They can add each other on the network, and if he ever needs equipment, he just has to ask. The MC accepts the proposal, and Yao is as happy as a little puppy about it. Zhang Yu and Jin Yan exited through the portal while Lin Yao bid them farewell. Everyone who saw the system announcement that Jin Yan had defeated the dungeon boss was impressed, and Su Qin started boasting about the girl's potential, claiming she was the strength of the entire Yanyu pavilion. One of the pavilion members remarked that Zhang Yu had probably survived the fight against the boss as well, and he realized he had underestimated him. He wanted to eliminate him at all costs, but the others acknowledged Zhang Yu's strength and skills, as well as his support from the Supreme Guild. Still, Chen had a plan. Failing to eliminate him didn't mean no one else could. A friend asked what the guild master meant by that, and he explained that the previous year, some adventurers had been trapped in the third world and were now around level 30. They wouldn't ignore the Chen family's reputation. Chen declared that Zhang Yu wouldn't escape him. If he failed to defeat him after that, he'd eat dirt hanging upside down. Back in the second world's forest, Jin Yan asked the protagonist if he would consider her an enemy now because of Su Chen's treatment of him. He replied that a person couldn't be judged by the behavior of others. He had only one enemy, and that was Qinjun, for now. She swore she wouldn't help Qinjun against him because she hated him too. Honestly, it seemed like she really wanted to confess her feelings for Zhang Yu. Taking the loot from the last boss out of her bag, she said she was grateful that he had let her deal the final blow and offered to give him the equipment. The MC looked at all the gear and thought that refining it would substantially boost his damage and health points. That was excellent. It was time for the third zombie wave. This time, it would be a level 15 wave, and the system instructed everyone to gather in the city to defend it. Excited, Zhang Yu thought that if he survived this final wave, the world missions would be complete, and he could proceed to the third world. Jin Yan said it was time for them to go, and the protagonist agreed. Someone ran past them, shouting the boy's name. Brown hair flashed by, and Jin Yan recognized the person. The ex-girlfriend, Zhang Yun, hugged the protagonist and admitted she was wrong, begging for his forgiveness. Zhang Yu asked what she meant by that, and she, with a sad expression, said Lin Yao didn't want her anymore. Irritated, Jin Yan asked if she was only apologizing to Zhang Yu because the rich guy had rejected her. Did she think the MC was an idiot? The girl admitted she had grown bored of his lack of money, but what girl didn't dream of a comfortable life with wealth? She said he had been so impressive recently and had a bright future. If they got back together now, she'd be the best girlfriend he ever had. The MC laughed in a way reminiscent of Anya Forger, and Jin Yan called her shameless. A scream echoed from within the forest near where the three of them were, and Jin Yan warned that the zombie wave was starting. It was time to leave and get ready. Fortunately, she had made some preparations right after the secret domain ended, so they could begin the wave immediately. Looking at his ex, the MC remarked that she said he had a bright future, then asked why he should be interested in someone like her. He told her to leave, leaving the girl shocked. She said he had changed too much because he'd never have said something like that to her before. The zombie wave began its attack, and Jin Yan immediately started using her binding spells so the MC could attack. She shouted that there were too many zombies. She couldn't control all of them. Zhang Yu summoned his scorpion and commanded it to protect Jin Yan first. The pet obeyed, immediately using its pincers to destroy the zombies and shield the girl. At that moment, the protagonist began casting a fireball, which struck multiple monsters at once. Then he heard a cry for help. Looking back, he saw his ex-girlfriend, or rather, the ex-girlfriend of the body's previous owner, being devoured by zombies and screaming for help. Jin Yan started to run toward her, but the MC grabbed her arm and told her not to go. He explained that she wouldn't be able to save anyone and could end up falling behind and getting eliminated too. The girl started fading as the zombies devoured her. The glow she emitted signaled her death, and they realized it meant she could no longer be resurrected by any means. It wasn't over yet. More zombies appear and start advancing. The MC turns his back, saying they need to leave because there's no time to mourn the death of others. Jin Yan obeys, and they leave. We might think the MC feels nothing for her, but the memories of the body's former owner surface in his mind and must have affected him. Back in the city, the zombies had already invaded several areas, and the adventurers were doing their best to defend it. This was already the third wave, and it still wasn't over. Zhang Yu says that most of the time, there are only 3 waves a day, so they were nearing the end. He still needed to complete a secret realm in this world if he wanted to move on to the third world. So he opens a portal and leaves her behind, saying the zombie wave will end soon, and she'll be able to take care of herself. Jinyan asks about him, and Zhang Yu simply replies that he has other things to deal with at the moment. She watches him leave and says she wishes she could have gone with him, but Zhang Yu was already gone and couldn't hear her. The MC was now in a level 17 zombie hospital. It was a secret realm, and he wanted to complete it before the zombie wave ended, so he enters. The zombies begin to notice his presence, but they don't have time to react. The MC summons his pet and starts destroying everything in sight. There was a lot of XP to be gained there. Many zombies are defeated, and countless coins appear. There were going to be plenty of rewards just for him. The system notifies him that he has completed the secret realm and received several rewards, including an elite pet egg. In addition to reaching level 20, he is now qualified to challenge the world boss and move on to the third world. He takes some of the rewards and gives them to his scorpion. Slowly but surely, he's getting closer to his goal of reaching mythical level. Analyzing his rewards, he sees that he's gained a new skill along with stronger equipment. This would help significantly in the battle against the boss. The new skill he gained was a super lightning bolt that, besides dealing massive damage, had a chance to paralyze the enemy for 1 second. He also received the Demon Destroyer Staff, which could burn the enemy's mana and, if they had no mana, burn additional HP instead. A message notification arrives for the protagonist, and, when he opens it, Jinyan asks if he wants to face the second world boss with her. Yao had also sent a message requesting help with the boss. Weighing his options, he sees that his chances against the boss would be better with a forbidden mage, and Yao had helped him a few times. He replies to the message, saying to meet at the entrance of the zombie palace in 15 minutes, and both confirm. Outside the city, a few people were gathering. Jinyan asks Yao why he brought so many people with him, and he laughs, saying he knows the two of them are incredibly strong, but he wanted to take precautions to avoid unnecessary risks. Zhang Yu doesn't mind and says as long as Yao is happy, it's fine with him. The system notifies them that the tasks are complete and detects several groups entering together, asking if they want to face the boss as a single group. Zhang Yu conjures a small ball and throws it at the yes button, and the portal to the world boss challenge opens. Afterward, the system window announces that the second world boss has been activated. The protagonist tells everyone to go, and Yao instructs his companions to stay close to him. Everyone confirms the orders. They step into the portal. A devastated city lies before them, with collapsing buildings and complete destruction. A monster stands in the middle of the desolation. The monster notices the adventurer's presence. It's a 3-star boss, the Zombie King. Yao is astonished by its size, much larger than the first boss, and he's already nearly wiped out the boys' group. They're visibly nervous, but the MC calmly tells them not to move. They need to stay far away from the boss because just one hit from it would be fatal. Jinyan understands the command and leaves the action to the protagonist, who summons his scorpion, as now is its time to shine. The pet appears and roaring, charges into battle. It had gained a lot of experience, and the gap between its level and the monsters was much smaller now. Facing the protagonist's pet, the Zombie King prepares for battle. Then it asks if the humans present want to experience the taste of death. With incredible speed, the scorpion charged forward, striking the boss directly in the chest. At the same time, Zhang Yu was casting a massive fireball while leaping toward the monster. He landed the fireball on the monster's face, causing it to roar in pain. The MC was pleased to see that his new equipment had indeed made him much stronger. From his current perspective, he didn't see the boss as much stronger than a typical monster he could easily defeat in a single blow. Shouting, "Disappear!" at the scorpion, the boss punched the pet squarely on the head, knocking it to the side. The Zombie King declared that he would now show these humans seeking death his true power. One of his arms extended into the ground, and several tentacles began to emerge, destroying the area, sending many flying away. The scorpion attacked the boss again, but the boss struck it with another punch, knocking the pet backward, and sending it flying several meters away. Desperate, Lin Yao shouted to his companions to heal the scorpion because it was the strongest tank in the group, and his men obeyed, using combined healing magic to save it. The Zombie King charged at the protagonist, already preparing his next attack, while the boy waited. Once again, the pet appeared, managing to position itself between the two to protect its master. Jinyan seized the opportunity to try binding the monster. Her magic hit the boss and managed to restrain its arms. Desperate, she pleaded with the MC to hurry and defeat the boss because her spell wouldn't hold for long, and he nodded. Grabbing his staff, he began casting magic, telling the monster that humans weren't despicable. He was just too weak. Several ice and fire spells struck the boss, dealing significant damage to its health bar. Lin Yao was stunned to see that the boss had already lost a quarter of its HP in an instant from the MC's spells. Switching to his lightning staff, Lan Yu said it was time to finish this. The sky began to swirl as the spell produced a lightning strike that hit the boss point blank. If it had hit me, I'd probably have turned into charcoal. I think the same thing happened to the boss, as it collapsed to the ground in front of the protagonist, apparently completely defeated. Jin Yan and Lin Yao were amazed by the protagonist's strength and asked how his damage had increased so much. Zhang Yu simply observed the boss, until 2 stone pillars fell beside him, and the system announced that the Zombie King's passive ability had been activated. It seemed something very dangerous was about to happen. The surrounding area began to collapse. Even the cliffs were breaking apart, and everyone panicked, wondering what was happening. Rising one last time, the Zombie King roared that he would take all these hateful humans with him, as a wave of lava began to appear. Yao was devastated and asked what they should do. At that moment, he was out of resurrection scrolls and couldn't afford to die again. The exit portal was in the middle of the lava, with a path of stones floating on the molten liquid, but it was too far for them to reach in time. The MC noticed his pet nearby and realized what he needed to do. He grabbed Lin Yao by the collar and Jin Yan by the waist, and shouting that there was no time to explain, he hurled them toward the armored scorpion. Zhang Yu commanded his pet to use all its strength to throw the two toward the exit portal, grabbing them with its pincers. The pet began pulling Lin Yao back to launch him forward like a fishing line. The boy was panicking, unable to understand what was happening, and was flung along with Jin Yan toward the portal. The two passed through the portal, and Jin Yan, relieved, said she thought she wouldn't survive in there. But Zhang Yu hadn't left yet, and the exit was about to disappear. Everything inside the portal was collapsing, and Zhang Yu stood with his pet as the lava consumed the area around them. The scorpion grabbed the boy with its pincers, and he commanded the pet to throw him through the portal just like it had with the other two, hurling him far. The MC dismissed the pet's summoning while he was in midair, heading toward the portal. Finally, the ground beneath them completely gave way, but the scorpion was no longer there. Zhang Yu could already see the portal right in front of him. Something stands between the boy and the portal. Lava had surged up like a spear in front of Zhang Yu. The boy avoids being hit by the lava, but the momentum of his movement is interrupted, and he begins to fall. He starts using his fire magic, and thrusts his staff directly into the lava, creating a massive explosion and generating enough force to propel himself upward. The portal was beginning to fade, and the two on the other side grew desperate. Yao even thought he had sacrificed himself to save him, but something quickly shoots through the portal, passing right between the two. Looking back, overwhelmed with emotion, they both shout Zhang Yu's name, and the MC is on his knees in front of them. Rising to his feet and smiling, the two approach him, and Jin Yan asks if he's okay. He says he is. The only thing that delayed him from getting out sooner was a strong tremor. The system congratulates the three of them for defeating the second world boss, making Yao extremely happy and grateful to the MC. Now that the world mission was complete, they could leave and rest for a while. The MC was already leaving when Jin Yan asked him to wait. She informs him that Qingjun has left the Rain Pavilion and will seek revenge on the protagonist at any cost, urging him to be careful. Turning back, he says he understands the warning. Lin Yao comments that Jin Yan's control abilities are very good and invites her to level up together in the third world, but she immediately declines. He accepts her refusal and suggests they work together again when the opportunity arises, and she agrees, adding that they are now friends, even if unexpectedly. The third world was called the Reaper's Arrival. The place resembled a giant graveyard, with countless crosses stuck in the ground. A hand emerges from the ground, breaking it in the process. Lin Yao and his group are exploring the third world when one of his subordinates comments that the safe zone in this place feels very eerie. But Yao is excited. They're the first to reach the third world, so they need to move quickly to become the strongest guild in Zhejiang. Someone steps on the boy's hand, making him scream, demanding to know who dared to step on him. Was that person tired of living? A man dressed in black asks if he is Lin Yao from the Supreme Guild and says he's looking for someone named Zhang Yu. They should bring him here. Yao gets up, jabs a finger into the man's chest, and demands to know who he thinks he is and if he believes he can simply order him to fetch you. One of his subordinates whispers to Yao, saying the strangers don't look friendly and asking if they should call the MC. But Yao says it's unnecessary. Drawing his sword, the man says if the boy refuses to obey, then he'll have to forgive him for being rude. F in the chat for our friend Lin Yao. The man attacks Lin Yao, but the sword passes right through him without causing any damage. Confused, they wonder if the attack was invalid and if they're under newbie protection. But that would be odd, as newbies don't reach the third world. Relieved, Yao says the newbie protection has a limit of 10 levels. Otherwise, they'd be done for. The other boys urge him to escape, but the strangers laugh, saying escape won't be as easy as they think. Attacking Lin Yao's companions, they completely defeat them, declaring that while Yao cannot be eliminated, his friends can. One of the remaining boys shouts that they are mercenaries specializing in eliminating adventurers for money. Lin Yao sits on the ground, already terrified. The man gives his final warning. He demands they bring Zhang Yu to him, or he can prepare for this to be his last day alive. Back in the protagonist's city, he receives a call from the hospital informing him that his brother's medical expenses have been paid. He feels reassured knowing his brother can continue his treatment. Zhang Yu thanks them. Looking at his phone screen, he sees a message from Lin Yao, sending a reward as thanks for saving him. He really was a rich heir. With this money, he wouldn't need to worry about medical expenses for a long time. He's still thinking about this when something catches his attention. It's a call from one of Lin Yao's companions, urgently asking for help. Otherwise, the boy will be eliminated for good. Once again, in the third world, Lin Yao and his friend are kneeling on the ground while the three mercenaries wait for the MC to arrive. One of them noticed someone approaching and warned his boss. Zhang Yu appeared, anger evident on his face, ordering him to release his friends. The mercenary leader said someone had hired him to eliminate Zhang Yu, so only one of them could walk away alive. He then gave the MC a choice, himself or Yao. Shouting, Yao demanded to know who was behind this and offered 1,000,000 yuan to let them go, claiming his father was the richest man in Linhai City. One of the mercenaries remarked that the offer was higher than their clients, but the leader responded that their clients' connections were far more valuable than money. Calling Zhang Yu a mere beast tamer, he ordered Lao Air to send him straight to hell. Obeying, the man eagerly charged at the MC, but his attack passed straight through Zhang Yu without causing any damage. Appearing behind the mercenary, Zhang Yu used an ice spear that struck him directly, knocking him to the ground and leaving him completely frozen. The second mercenary, furious, cursed at the protagonist and also launched an attack, but Zhang Yu was already casting a fire spell, which exploded, throwing the man backward and defeating him with a single strike. The boy barely had to move to defeat two mercenaries, leaving the third man extremely confused and terrified. How could someone so insignificant defeat a level 25 warrior with just one spell? He drew his sword and, in an instant, appeared behind Zhang Yu, startling him with his speed. The attack struck Zhang Yu's back, and this time, he took damage. The system informed him that he had been hit by another adventurer. Now facing each other, the assassin was impressed, remarking that Zhang Yu had survived one of his attacks, but that it would end now, charging in for another strike. The MC realized he couldn't dodge the attack. The assassin was level 30, with far greater agility than his own. He summoned his armored scorpion to protect him, and it intercepted the mercenary's sword with its pincers, but the scorpion roared, and in the next moment, the man was just a step away from landing a critical hit on the boy. He shouted that it was time for Zhang Yu to meet his end, and the MC thought there was no way to avoid it. When a spell hit the man, paralyzing him, we already know whose power this is. For the second time, Jinyan saved Zhang Yu at the last second, yelling to ask if he was okay. The assassin realized his situation had turned dire, and the MC, smiling menacingly, told him it was now his turn to be sent to his grave. Knowing his fate was sealed, the assassin began screaming in despair. A massive explosion erupted in front of the MC, though the spell was his and didn't affect him. In contrast, the mercenary was completely defeated, unconscious, as flames consumed his body. The assassin was stunned that a mere level 20 beast tamer had enough damage to defeat a level 30 assassin with golden equipment. Zhang Yu acknowledged that once again, Jinyan had appeared at a critical moment to save him and thanked her. She smiled and said it was nothing, commenting playfully that it felt as though they were connected by the red thread of fate. Oops, wrong country, sorry. Despite her words, she thought to herself that she had always kept an eye on him, waiting for an opportunity like this to be close to him. Yao approached with his companions, apologizing to the MC for causing all this trouble, but Zhang Yu said it was nothing, they had been after him. Lin Yao suggested that it might have been Qin Jun who hired them, as he had been acting very suspiciously lately. He asked what they should do. Jin Yan asked if Yao recognized the people they had just defeated. Yao said they were members of the mercenary assassins group. The MC asked who they were, and Yao explained that they were a small group that had been around for a few years, with over 50 members. Jin Yan added that despite their numbers, none of them had ever surpassed level 30. Yao was puzzled, asking how that was possible when they had been in the third world for 10 years. Zhang Yu explained that surpassing level 30 required a second job advancement. They had likely exploited a bug to avoid leveling up further. They had stayed in the third world for years, making a living by eliminating new professionals, accumulating wealth, equipment, and power. Still confused, Yao wondered why they wouldn't let him go, even though his offer was better than their clients. The MC suggested they might have been coerced. They may have failed this time, but they will certainly return stronger to try and eliminate them. Frightened, Yao asks what they should do since the level difference between them is too high, and they can't defend themselves yet. Zhang Yu recalls Yao mentioning the connection between his family and the Xiao family and asks if they can help create a piece of equipment. Yao asks what kind of equipment it should be, and the MC places a hand on his shoulder, explaining that any equipment below level 20 would work as long as it has an effect called Demon's Heart. The faster it's made, the better. As the MC begins to leave, Yao says it's not a problem to request it but asks why they need such equipment. Turning back to respond, the MC says their survival in the third world depends on it. At a building in Lehigh City, someone shouts in shock that a level 30 assassin was defeated by a level 20 beast tamer. A man says maybe his brothers were careless and fell into a trap, declaring that he'll handle it personally. He is the leader of the assassins. The boss warns him not to disappoint, reminding him of the consequences. The man simply nods, and we return to the protagonist. He is using his fire magic, apparently to create light as he sits next to his staff, thinking about what to do next. Facing the assassins alone is suicide. The system displays the requirements to face the world boss, and this time, they are different and more complicated. He needs to increase the defense value of his tomb, as monsters constantly attack it, which can be done by defeating them. A wave of monsters attacks the tombs every 12 hours and lasts for 10 minutes. If the adventurer isn't there to defend it, they'll be killed instantly. Everyone, including the assassins, retreats to defend their tombs. This is the MC's only chance. Now, he just needs to wait for Lin Yao. A message pops up for the MC, and it's Lin Yao informing him that the equipment he requested is ready. They meet, and Yao is very excited to see his savior. It's amazing how this guy has become the ultimate bro in this story, almost a Jobro from a Manhwa. Zhang Yu says he didn't expect the equipment to be ready so quickly, but isn't that exactly what he wanted? Yao explains that since his father is a close friend of the Xiao family's leader, they prioritized the equipment because it was an urgent request. Wielding his new staff, the MC seems excited, and the equipment is truly packed with great stats, even at just level 20. Curious, Yao asks if they're going to attack the assassins group since they've been ambushing his guild members, but the MC has other plans. The system announces that the monster wave is about to begin, and they all need to head to their tombs to defend them. A group approaches Yao and his friends, and they notice it's the mercenaries. But the MC reassures him, saying they don't need to worry since they're in a safe zone, and the mercenaries won't attack. One of the mercenaries steps closer and says he's curious to see how long they can last in this wave because they'll kill them the first chance they get. As they leave, the MC tells them to hurry to their tombs, but Yao shouts that going anywhere else would be suicide for him. Zhang Yu tells him to stay in his tomb no matter what. If necessary, he can return to the second world to grow stronger. Then he turns his back on everyone and enters a portal. Yao is left confused, wondering what the MC might be planning. In a distant location, a blue dome begins to appear. A catadioptric eye opens, observing what's happening, and a gigantic demon begins walking toward the dome. Our video ends here. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, bye bye.